Secure your Elixir apps with Paraxial IO. From code analysis and bot defense to dependency checks, they've got you covered. Elixir first design with GitHub integration. Elevate your security at Paraxial.io. Testing. What's up? I'm Jacob Blitzo, your Elixir mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. Today, I'm welcoming Tristan Kildaire. Did I screw that up?
No, it's
okay, cool. I feel like I did. So he's a low-level systems programmer who recently shared experiments with LoRa, radio technology, and Reticulum mesh networks. And I'm sure if I butchered any of that, Tristan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited because this is going to be just me learning a lot of new stuff, and I'm excited for our conversation. Could you give just a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. So Tristan Kildaire, I'm, at least at this stage, do a lot of low-level programming. Didn't necessarily know I'd get into it. I kind of knew from a little bit of background. I've done a lot of work in Java and stuff like that, especially for the day job. That's basically what I do. And I work on a lot of basically IoT related sort of things, smart metering. So that's kind of just my work background. That then also leads into what my actual interests are. So socket programming, networking, big fan of that. It's basically what I love to do. And then on the side, there's kind of those two factions. It's like the networking side, and then there's also the more lower level stuff. So I'm also kind of a big programming language guy. So one of my biggest hobby projects is actually a compiler that I'm working on for my own language. So it's a little bit of a summary of me, but I hope that gives a bit of a taste for where this could go,
It does. That means he's a lot smarter than me for sure, and maybe a lot of our listeners. What is your language? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Okay, so you could take a guess what the name is. You always got to name it after yourself. So it's Tristan or T Lang.
Okay.
So that's the name. But if you're wondering, okay, what paradigm is it?
I was going to say T sharp, but
oh well, that's actually that would have been a brilliant. I mean, I am sharp, so I mean, what can I say? But it's something that okay. Let me start off with this. The language exists. It's not just an idea that I've written down somewhere. So I have an implementation for it. I've been working on it for about the last. Now it's maybe I think it's 5 years. Now I started working on it just on and off back during university. But the language itself is basically just think of C, but with object orientation, modules, a package manager, that's a big one. And then the thing is is it C++, Tristan? No, it's actually something you can read with your eyes without having to gorge them out. So that's where it fits in, I guess. But it's still an ongoing sort of thing. Still working on it, but
that's awesome. Very cool. I don't even know where I would start if I was I'm going to build a language.
Dude, honestly, you just start somewhere. The only training, so to speak, that I had for compilers was, during university, there's always a compiler course. They give you a little simple grammar for a language to implement, and it's go ahead, do this. You got a month to do it or something. So, I mean, that's the only experience I have, but that was for a very simple language, as you could imagine. They don't give hard stuff to second years. So I got a little bit of experience there. Then I sat on my idea for about a year. Procrastination kills everything. And then I just, after some time, I'm like, damn, if I don't do anything about this now, I will never do it. So I just started with, you start at the bottom and you just build your way up and you just keep throwing new features at it.
That is good. You do have to just start, right? Everything that I've made any success in, I've started, and it doesn't start smoothly.
No, it doesn't.
You're always happy that you started it, right?
No, definitely. Yeah. And I think the big thing is my main thing that sort of put the wall between me and actually doing it. So as I said, procrastination, but for me it was am I good enough of a programmer? And the thing is, I had already worked out how I would implement everything in my head, but yeah, I am like doubting myself that I wouldn't be able to start it at least. So, yeah, I mean, if there's any advice there, just whatever it is you want to work on, just start. Like,
Yeah.
you don't get points for not starting. Let me put it like that.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is like I always wanted to start a podcast, but I already was
Mm.
doing like YouTube tutorials for a year, and I was
Yes,
like,
yeah.
dude, I don't have enough time to edit that stuff because it takes so much
Mm.
time to edit. Even like
Imagine.
you pick up all these tricks to like edit your mistakes quicker and things. Like I'll throw a
Mm.
clap in there so the audio bar just like skyrockets. I'm like, I gotta go cut that. But I was like, I can't start a podcast because I don't have time to edit it. And then I just started doing it live, and I was like, yeah, just get me live. So every dumb
Yeah,
thing
you
I
just gotta do
say
it
is
live. Yeah.
broadcasted to the world.
Yeah, and I think it's the other thing is the more you hold it off, there's also, even if you could argue that you reached a point in your programming career where you're like, okay, I know everything, I don't need to procrastinate because I know immediately how everything's going to work. There are some things you also just don't know that you'll only learn when you actually start and you get input from others. So it's actually beneficial to start, even if you have no idea, how to go
I
about it.
forget I forget how to write simple syntax all the time. So like I learn new things every
Yeah.
day. I like got really excited because the topic of this, it's a little out of my realm, but I think it'll be
Mm.
good conversation, right? Because like you're kind of a hardware
Definitely.
guy,
Yeah, yeah, a little
IoT
bit, yeah.
guy. Like my background, I used to do like manufacturing automation and things like that.
Mm.
So I did that for 10 years, but now I'm aging myself here, but it's been almost 10 years since I've been in that world.
Mhm.
And so I always have like a curiosity to get back into like IoT stuff. And then like
Yeah, especially
when
I
I,
guess you did it such a long time ago. You're probably wondering what the current, sort of
mhm.
technologies are and where things are. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And then like when you just hear updates of the Nerves project and things like that, it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, I should just play around. And then I was like, I don't even know like what LoRa is, right? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
started like looking into it. I was like, dude, like long range radio, that would be a fun project. Like, cause I live
Yeah,
in
it
the
can be. Yeah,
mountains, so
it's
I could
perfect.
do,
It's ideal. Yeah.
yeah, so I could do like some fun IoT project.
Mm.
And so yeah, I'm excited about this. And why like before like we dive too much in, let's like just start like super basic. Can you tell us like first what like LoRa is, and am I saying it right? And then what is
Yeah.
reticulum?
Sure. So it's actually you've ordered it perfectly. It makes sense to start with LoRa first. So LoRa, as the name, it's a bit of a contraction of long range. Yeah, just basically long
Like
range. That's
radio
what it
waves
stands.
essentially, right?
Effectively, yeah. It operates, I think, if you're in Europe, at least, in terms of where the regulatory bodies say it should operate. So in Europe, it's normally on like 400 megahertz. So there's like an allocated area where you can do all your LoRa stuff. In South Africa, uh, it's like 800 megahertz. So it's sub gigahertz, But in any case, it's basically so it's two things. It's, a part of the spectrum, but then it's also where the long range part comes in is I guess, the more impressive part. So it's it's two things. It's effectively a proprietary scheme used to encode data um, in a way that works well for long distance transmission. So there are other technologies that work on the same part of the spectrum that don't necessarily perform as well, both in, maybe data rate, how fast you can send data, and also the distance you can send. So LoRa is kind of like a sort of, I guess, the leader in that sense. And it's also very low energy. So, the example you gave with, up in the mountains over there, you're not going to take an electrical cord all the way up there. You wanted to put it on some piece of hardware, maybe a battery or a solar cell, but you don't want the consumption for the power to be high. So it's ideal for those situations. And it's also the actual radio modules themselves are just very cheap. So it's like the go-to technology, I'd say, for sensor networks and maybe like remote controllers and those sort of things.
That's cool. Are you currently do you use like those antennas? I'm guessing with your day job, if you said you do like meter
Yeah, so
metering?
not yet. So with the stuff that I'm working with currently at my day job, none of it yet is LoRa based. There are smart meters you can get that do use it because it kind of makes sense. But the ones I'm working with currently just use like normal cell networks, so like 3G, or some of the newer ones use LTE, or I think they call it NB-IoT. It's kind of like the same thing but not. But those are a lot more higher bandwidth, but also with that they also consume more electricity. Not a problem for a smart meter because it's always connected to the grid. It's a little bit problematic maybe in South Africa because the grid doesn't always work. It just turns off sometimes. So maybe LoRa is helpful there. There could be an argument to be made there. But yeah, currently for the day job, we don't use it. So it's all this LoRa sort of stuff that I've been doing has come more from my hobbyist sort of side. Just tinkering around with things.
Yeah. Well, cell makes sense for like commercial purposes too.
No,
And
yeah,
if you
definitely.
if
It's
you
easier as
have
well.
towers, right? You're not in the middle of
Exactly. Yeah,
nowhere.
the
You might
infrastructure.
as
Yeah, yeah.
well, yeah, take advantage of always being connected, right?
No, definitely. And that's the thing. They wouldn't it. So with the meters as well, it depends what you're doing with it. LoRa is a good match if you just want to remotely control it, turn it on or off. But if you want to pull a bunch of data, like a week's worth of telemetry information, then LoRa probably isn't the best option. Then a cellular network actually does work really well. And then, as you said, there's already cell towers, like at least 100 of them where I live in the area. So, like, coverage is there. You don't have to build additional infrastructure. So, from the company's side, it's kind of a no-brainer.
I'm always
But that may
curious,
change.
why do I see like meter trucks driving around like they have to like be within a certain
Oh,
range?
yes. Yeah, so I think I've never seen one of those in South Africa, but I am aware, at least in the US, and depending on who installed the meters. So with those ones, I think those are I'm going to probably call them. And look, my metering like knowledge is only 2 years, not 2 years old. It's 2 years young. I've only been working for 2 years in this industry, but from my knowledge, those are effectively what I'd probably refer to as like the first age of smart meters, because effectively the implication of having a truck drive around means that they can't transmit that far.
Hmm.
So effectively, they're going by pinging it, and then they respond with whatever the amount of units that have been consumed, and then they can take that back to their office and then run that on the tariff, and then from there they can bill the customer. So that's most likely. And hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I guess the guy that drives around enjoys his job, but so
Oh
that's
my
probably
gosh.
where that comes from. Yeah.
I would be brain dead after just like a day of work.
No, yeah, maybe in the future it would be kind of odd if they like make the car like self-drive itself. But at that point, if you invest that much money, just like upgrade the meters at that point.
That's true, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just put in a little cell broadcaster or whatever you would do.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's what that is. What I've also seen is there are the newer meters. Some of them, and this kind of plays into the whole sort of mesh networking thing. There are also other brands where what they do is if you have like a person living at house A and then B and then down the block C, and the person at house C is the only one that's near a cell tower, then the meters actually form like routing paths between each other, and they can actually move data from A through B all the way to C and then back to the actual network. So
Nice.
yeah, there's a lot of different. There's you can think of any technology and they've probably used it for smart metering. So there's a lot of like sort of diversity of use cases over there.
Oh, that's cool. And then so like Reticulum, that's
Mm,
mesh networking, right?
yes, correct.
What is it in particular though? What is like Reticulum? Like what does it
So
give you? Is it a framework? Like
yes,
what
yeah.
is it?
So it's yeah. So I'd say it is a framework. We can start at that point. So and it's what it we can maybe compare it to conventional networking, like IP based networks. And what does IP give you? It doesn't really give you much. It gives you a way to route packets, and that's it. You run stuff like TCP and UDP on top of it, and then on top of those, you run something else, and then at the end of the day, you're watching memes on YouTube. That's kind of like the flow of everything. So Reticulum replaces a part of that. It doesn't necessarily support all the stuff above it, but it's first and foremost, it's a protocol, so it helps route data from one place to another. I think a place where it differs, two places where it differs with conventional networking is that there's cryptography is like an intrinsic thing to it. Like stuff has to be encrypted or else it will not work. There's a lot of benefits to that other than the obvious ones like privacy. One of the, I guess, important points is that on the internet currently there's existing networks. There's a lot of, how can I say, human trust required for things to operate correctly. And now it depends, I guess, how you define it, but effectively on Reticulum, you need less of that. So you can prove, for example, that you own a given network on Reticulum, and you can also verify against that. So you can't have somebody hijack your network and have traffic actually routed to them instead of you. So that's one sort of I think a less thought of sort of benefit of it. Then the other thing is, trying to think about how all the LoRa stuff comes in and those things. So it's also designed to work on some of the slowest like bitrate networks that are out there. I saw a measurement once from the creator that it can run at like 9 bits per second, like some bizarrely low data rate. Now, it might not be that nice to use at that data rate, but it's usable.
I mean, that's impressive, though.
Well, for some people, I mean, that's like that's like sliced bread, But yeah, so what it does is it's able to work on very low powered hardware. So that's where LoRa kind of comes in. That's why normally when you talk about Reticulum, it's always mentioned next to LoRa. But yeah, it can also work over your normal existing infrastructure, existing networks, and it can route all between these. So you can create a heterogeneous sort of hodgepodge of this network, a very fast Ethernet connection with a link that goes over LoRa, and you can put all of these things together with cryptography built in, so it's all secure and like permissionless. And then you have a network that you can effectively use. And then where the framework comes in is, well, you can build applications on top of it. So there are obviously chat applications, things for sending files. I think there's an implementation of like SSH that you can use on Reticulum, so you could log into a machine and control it. And I've seen
cool.
a lot of things. No, it's. I think the creator of it, he put quite a lot of effort into designing it, of course, but then I think he created quite a few demo applications because it's very hard to convey the use case of a network without showing somebody, hey, look, that thing you used to be able to do on your network, you can also do it on ours. So yeah, that's, I think, a good summary of what Reticulum is. So mesh network with cryptography, and it can work on incredibly low bitrate networks.
And between radio, Wi-Fi, whatever it may be. So that's really cool.
Yeah, so you're not married to one, because there are similar projects, but they only work on a given, they only work over LoRa, which it's not really good for adoption, something like that. And it's also not even a technical requirement. There's no reason that they have to do that. These things, if it can work on the lowest bitrate network, it can obviously work on a higher one. So yeah, it meets, I think, at least my standard of it actually has to be usable and as far reaching as possible. So yeah.
We have a pretty good question, actually. Yeah. For low power devices, how is encryption and decryption part of Reticulum carried out? Is it expensive?
So there's various ways you can run Reticulum. There's sort of, and I'll just go over these kind of briefly because it is important to mention. You can run, there's two versions. There's a Python version, which is probably like, raising some alarm bells now. How are these people running Python on embedded devices? That can't perform well. And then there's a version of it that they've, I think, re-implemented in C++. And yeah, in terms of the C++ one, that version, basically you can run it on, like you get like ESP32s, quite common chip for IoT projects. I haven't played with those ones directly. I've played with Reticulum in a slightly different mode where you don't do the encryption on the device. You use the little embedded device, the little antenna and everything. You use that simply as the actual network interface. It does have to be running software that Reticulum can use. They've created software that actually runs on it. So in that case, I haven't tested the fully C++ version, which runs just on the device. So it's kind of like you're using the little ESP32 to receive the data and transmit, but the encryption's being done on a Raspberry Pi or an x86 machine, like a laptop or whatever. So I've seen rather good performance, but I've heard from at least people, and I can't verify this, I'd need to do it myself, but I've heard that it performs pretty well on the embedded devices itself when you're running the standalone version, both in terms of, I think the encryption works fine, performance-wise, and there's also a lot of data storage involved. That's another thing we could probably talk about, because the network was also designed for, I'd say, what's a good way to put it? So you can imagine with LoRa, you're not going to be sending MP4s or MP3s across, at least very quickly. It's going to take some time. I mean, the last test I did was try to send like a PDF. It took about like 2 minutes or so. No,
take me back to the dial-up days.
Exactly.
And Napster,
exactly. Yeah. And the thing with this is that what you end up with is there's sort of two things you always need to take into account when you're doing mesh networking. There's your bit rate, and then it's, okay, how fast can you make it for the user? But then there's also protocol traffic. All of the Reticulum nodes need to be able to announce themselves so that other nodes can, pick up that announcement and build a routing table. And one thing that Reticulum is sort of built around is, I guess it's sort of the assumption that the nodes aren't going to move around that lot. They're not going to be very mobile in a certain sense. Because what that implies is if you take one of those LoRa radios with you and you're running Reticulum, you moving around and let's say you drive a kilometer down, the network will adapt, and within that time frame, it shouldn't be a problem. But if you have something that's continuously moving, like between A and B, you can imagine what that does. It generates a lot of announcements, and so they've basically built it around the assumption that when you hear an announcement, kind of assume that it's going to be there for a long time. So they actually store this information on disk. And they also do the same on the embedded version of Reticulum. So basically my point is that it ends up being a lot of stuff that they end up storing. And even the embedded devices, they handle it, without an itch. So it's, I'm actually quite amazed. It works well.
So it wouldn't be very performant to have like a truck driving around with an antenna sending and receiving?
It depends. It depends. The example I was giving, it's kind of hard to pull off in real life because, you can pull it off by doing a simulation like with Docker or whatever, where, you continuously send announcements and have it jump between.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, because it's actually quite physically hard to like.
Yes, I mean, unless
between...
you're physical positions,
unless we're transporting.
Example, well, I mean, and that may be a thing soon. Who knows? Right. But I think with the truck example, no, that would work fine because you have to think about it. Like you're connected to this one, it does radio measurements to figure out, once the signal drops below a certain amount, it's basically always sending announcements. So whichever one gets picked up and measures, I guess has a better estimation for a route, that one will be used. But as you said, the truck is not going to be moving at light speed. So even in scenarios like that, I think it's fine. It's more the reason I bring up that example about flipping between the two really quickly is that at least on misconfigured networks, that does happen sometimes. So if that does happen with your Reticulum network and a lot of your links are going over LoRa, then you might have a problem. But it's unrealistic, that example. I think it's not, it's not going to physically happen. If you're driving around in your car with it, and I've done that before, actually, it looked a little bit weird. I'm kind of walking around this like really posh neighborhood with an antenna, and, like all of the housewives are just like looking at me. I'm like, chill. It's fine, guys. It's fine. I'm not going to interrupt your, your sports game on your TV. It's fine.
I would assume you were trying to like sniff my Wi-Fi and I'd chase you off.
I did look like that when I was walking around, but then also felt like a little bit of a badass. So I'm like, nah, this is cool, man. They're fine with it. They don't really know what I'm doing.
What do they call those hardware, like pineapples?
The Wi-Fi pineapple is quite a common one. No. I don't think there's anything of interest to sniff where I live. Maybe there's some like damning evidence against somebody that's supposedly very pious in the neighborhood. But other than that, not much going on, so there's not much to sniff.
Do you have a particular project that you're working on right now with this stuff, or is it just all just kind of like bench play? Or are you building anything cool?
There, there is so there is some there is bench play sometimes, especially when I got into the reticulum stuff. There was like kind of learning a lot about it. So obviously, in the garage, I've got this nice like pine wood, or is it pine wood? No, it's whatever that cheap, really cheap wood is. It's not even real wood. I've got
Like
that all over
plywood?
there. Oh, I can't believe I got
Like
pine
press
wood and
board
plywood.
or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah. Like all the
Yeah.
offcuts, and they press it down. And so I started off with the reticulum stuff. That was my first sort of like little, bench project, effectively. That then quickly turned into like I wrote like a few blogs on it. So I had a little bit of a blog series on how to set all the stuff up. Now that stuff is still running in the garage. I do intend to actually get a nice bigger antenna that I can mount on the ceiling or on the roof. So that's where that's going. So that's kind of like an ongoing sort of, and there's other people, not necessarily in my town, but in the next town over, that are also interested in, playing around with the stuff. A lot of the ham radio, the radio amateurs, that those sort of guys are very into it as well. So there's a bit of like an intersection over there, I think. So I'd say that's one of the projects. That's kind of like an ongoing thing. And then other stuff related to wireless networks. There's also some more higher bandwidth stuff that I'm playing around with Wi-Fi and everything. That doesn't really have much of a direction yet, but I am writing a bunch of stuff on it, kind of along the lines of, building your own networks, a bit of a guide on how to do it. And also there's always like an aspect of the cryptography aspect to it, because there's a lot of stuff you can do these days to build very dynamic but also secure networks. So yeah, there's a few projects. It's kind of hard to get into because I don't know where they're going to end up, but some of them, I guess, are like educational. They're going to end up probably in some PDF that I publish or something. So
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's the best way to learn, though.
no,
I
definitely.
don't.
I get
Do
to
you
write down all the stuff where I found my problems, and everybody gets to see it. You can learn from it. So yeah.
do you have to be like with like ham radios? At least in the U.S., you have to have a license to operate them. Is that a
Yeah,
thing?
it's the same in South Africa. I don't have my license. But thankfully, I'm not doing anything on those frequencies, so that's fine. But what I was more getting to is that there is a crossover between. So the LoRa stuff is on an unlicensed band, so you don't need any.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask if
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
same concept.
No,
Yeah.
no, you don't need to get a document from some guy in a suit. It's
Yeah,
pretty easy to
yeah.
just start
I've
messing
always
around with.
the ham radio stuff intrigues me, right? But I've never done
Mm-hmm.
it because I don't want to be like paying an extra tax and license for something so
Oh yeah,
silly.
yeah.
But
I
like
assume
you,
here it's. I assume here it's. I at least I'd hope. I think I'm assuming it's a once-off thing.
yeah.
Um, the only benefit I could see, at least for me, would be there's a lot of stuff you learn for the exam you take, a lot of antenna theory and stuff, and that stuff I mean, I could do that without the license. I could just go learn it online, but it would be nice to kind of test my knowledge on that, because I'm
I
not an
mean,
expert in that.
I would be curious to do it. What's like cool about it to me is when you hear about like, if weather conditions are like perfect, you can get these guys talking like around the world to each
Yeah,
other.
yeah, yeah.
And
Or they do that other thing where they do what's it called, moon bouncing, where you bounce signals off of the moon and then
okay,
down.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's a
maybe
lot of
that's
cool
what.
stuff they do. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's cool. There just needs to be more hours in the day so I have time for all these like
yeah. It's always
side
that. It's
tangents.
always that.
I
No, definitely.
just work keeps me too busy these days.
Yeah, the thing is, I've figured with, and this is something that it's interesting because I've there's a lot of things that interest me, and I think the more you get better at something, it opens up a lot of doors to other avenues you could go down.
Hmm.
And I've actually realized, like, damn, there's only 24 hours in a day. I've actually got to choose what to do and what not to do, and some things I'll probably will never get to doing, and it kind of sucks, but it's kind of like the curse of knowing a lot of things. It's that you need to kind of triage them.
Like I used to always be that person where I was like, if I just had one good idea to build a business, that's all I need and I would do it. My problem is now, once you have a good idea and you like start spending time working on it, your brain just messes with you, and you start getting
Yeah, yeah.
thousands of good ideas, and then you don't have time for all your projects.
It's always like that. You get distracted. One of the things with me, especially when I'm doing a lot of programming, I'll be working on one thing and then I'm like, I need this functionality, and it either doesn't exist in a library, or the library that does do it doesn't do it the way I want. Oh, then you end up going to code that library, and then now you maintain that, and then that thing, needs something else, and then you do that, and then you actually forget how you got here in the first place. And you're like, oh, that's what I was using it for. So it happens.
Yeah. It's a curse, right? It's just like,
God,
it's so you can't focus to finish anything. It's just to taunt us.
It does. And the thing is, the reason why I'm always hesitant to call it a curse, even though it feels like it sometimes, is because I remember a stage in my life when I was very young, when I understood nothing about computers.
Yeah.
I was like, they're magical, they just work. And there's a part of it that's a little bit sad. It kind of sucks when you understand how they work, because you're like, damn, they're not magical. They're actually very simple, but a lot of simple things put together that makes a complicated system.
Which makes it really impressive that it works so well.
It does, right? Yeah. But it does suck. My childhood memories were like, oh, this thing's so magical. I want to be Bill Gates when I'm older. Now, not so much. I don't know if I really want to be him, but now I know about computers and stuff, and it's it's an up and a down. I think the thing is that now, later on when you learn these things in life, you're able to at least create something with it, and maybe inspire somebody else. So, I think it's a positive, even though it does come with its downsides of distractions and all of those.
Well, like, I'll always, like, if I have really good ideas, now I just like broadcast them to the world, and I tell as many people as I can, because I hope someone else does it, right? It's always like, everyone that's worried about other people stealing their ideas, it's not going to happen. I've had really good ideas that I've put out there, and no one's built it yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you need something like some library for an application you're writing, you just go on, like, I don't know, Twitter or wherever you go, just be like, damn, it's a real pity nobody's written this yet. It would really suck if somebody stole this idea. And then you just give them like a whole entire like spreadsheet of how everything needs to fit together, and then you hope somebody takes it.
Yeah, implementation plan, like, go.
Yeah, well, I've got some pseudocode and everything. Yeah, it's like almost done.
Oh, that's funny. So one thing that I know you haven't really touched base on, but since this is the Elixir Mentor podcast, I thought it would only make sense to talk about these things, like the IoT things, but like bring in why like Elixir is a good fit for these kind of projects. And then we can talk about the Nerves project a little bit. I'm not that versed, so it just depends on how well you're familiar with it. But what is your opinion? Like, first of all, what brought Elixir onto your radar? Like, how do you even know that I exist? I'm curious.
So, the backstory to how I know you exist. So let me start with the Elixir side. Maybe is Elixir I've heard of. I read a little bit about it, and then like I don't know, my mind just went like I don't know. Something happened, and like there was a space of 2 years, and now I'm back here. Maybe this is a sign I need to actually learn Elixir, and it is tempting. But in terms of how
come on, I know a guy that has really good basic tutorials.
I wonder if he's tutorials are like on YouTube or something. I should check them out maybe.
Yeah, they might be.
They might be. I wonder if I'm speaking to him even. Yeah, so I think at least let me put it like this. So there's sort of two things. There's how I've sort of come to appreciate at least what Elixir can do, and why it is tempting for me to learn it. And then, in terms of your podcast, I think the first time I came across it was that guest, Isaac, the fellow Greek programmer.
Yes.
He and I don't know how we connected on LinkedIn. Honestly, I don't know how I connected with most people on LinkedIn. It just happens, it's like just connect. Yeah. It's one of those things, I don't have any.
I deny a lot of like venture capitalists and
dude, it always yeah. And also like if I get a JavaScript developer that's on like a no, I don't do that. Like they get.
I feel for those guys. I used to be one.
No, honestly, like if you're a good programmer, it doesn't matter what language you do it in. Honestly, I think at least try learn a bunch of different languages. But it's it's just a bit of like an old joke. Maybe it's getting old.
Yeah. It's
But
okay.
yeah,
I make fun of PHP developers too.
and PHP isn't even that bad these days.
No, it's not.
I've seen people build like. Correct me if I'm wrong. I heard that somebody built like a desktop app using it. Like apparently you can do that now. I don't know how, but anyways. But yeah, so I came across, so I befriended or electronically befriended because I've never met him, but I met him on LinkedIn, and I don't know how he actually got into Elixir originally. I think, he was doing a bunch of stuff. I think he might have left from one company and gone to another. It's kind of like, restarting, trying to like reinvigorate his sort of programming life. And I think he might have come across your podcast at some stage, and he really got into Elixir. And then he started sharing that stuff with me. And I was quite impressed. I mean, like he showed me a bunch of stuff like Phoenix LiveView. And I'm like, wait, you can code a website without touching JS? That's wild. Like that is actually wild. And I was very impressed with that.
Well, you still do for the animations.
Yeah, but like that's such a tiny thing. But what? The thing that impresses me with it is that what you get is so much. And it's almost, I've always had this dream of like, I don't know how to describe it, but like coding on the back end where you code everything there and then somehow you can get it on the front end. It blew my mind. And I saw how he was able to build a whole entire management interface for one of his companies.
Isaac's tuning in right now. He just said,
"Oh, is he? Oh, well,
yeah.
So yeah, no, it impressed me what he was able to accomplish so quickly with it. And it also like hardly ever looked like anything ever broke. Like it just kind of worked. And if he had to debug something, it was very easy. So I was impressed. Like I hadn't touched Elixir yet. I still haven't, but I'm getting tempted to now. But I've seen a lot of positives from it. And that's how I've kind of come to, sort of learn a bunch of things about it on the side. And it does offer, like this isn't like, I'm not like an Elixir shill, but it offers stuff that other languages simply don't.
Do you not know what podcast you're on?
Oh, sorry. Just hold on. Let me just get my brain straight. Dude, I love Elixir.
There we go.
No, so what impresses me about it is, a lot of the time, and I'm going to use the R word, Rust, okay? Now, the problem with Rust is that, I'm going to be real with you, it makes programming unfun, and I don't know how you can do something unfun for your whole life.
Is it because of the language or the community?
Dude, I don't know how you...
I just said that live on YouTube.
Dude, your subscriber count is gonna drop now, dude. You've lost you lost one Rust developer. But yeah, so I think for me the comparison I'm trying to make is that a lot of times people will be like, yo, I want to get into functional programming, and whatever language you end up learning, it's kind of like it's just luck which one you, and like they're basically all the same. But with Elixir and like the whole sort of like reliability stuff with like the supervisors and the supervisor trees and all of that stuff, I haven't seen that in another language. And I mean like built into the system. There's a lot of ways where you can do similar things with external systems. And I think a lot of people know about that. But having it all, there are pros and cons of it, but having it all built into a single sort of unified system, it does make a lot of other things easier. It also means that whenever you interoperate with some other Elixir package that you're getting, it's got those guarantees. You've got the guarantees for your application. And so that kind of, started getting the sort of cogs turning in my head. So I think that's how I've come to sort of, I'm reading up about it now, and especially with nerves, I can see kind of how it all fits in.
I think we're going to get you writing some Elixir code soon. I can feel it.
I can see, Isaac has tried to convince me, and I just think I needed this podcast to do it. So I think sometime this year, maybe I'll return for another episode as an Elixir dev.
Like really, if like not even getting into the nerve stuff yet, just like the concept of, Erlang, right? Just the telecommunication, how the supervision tree works, lightweight processes, and it's just very resilient. So you can have like your mesh network, you can have nodes crash and automatically restart without taking a whole network down. Like there's a lot of benefits that
definitely. I think
it would make things
fun. And that's kind of where I've seen like the whole, when you look at like the history of Erlang, for example, the whole thing they always talk about is like, yes, using it for electronic switching systems like ESS. And that's, I think why maybe it feels like it's taken so long for me to notice the applicability of Elixir to like IoT is that there's kind of a gap, I think, with like, how can I say, like IoT and like its actual like usefulness. Telephone switching systems, obviously, they started off manual, then they went to electromechanical, and then they went fully digital. And they had to be very reliable because the phone system had existed prior to that. It wasn't them creating something for a problem that doesn't exist. They had the problem. And reliability, phone calls coming in, okay, if a process for it drops, restarting it, and they're somewhat independent. One phone call doesn't have much to do with the other one. So you can kind of do that sort of thing. Then there's kind of a gap. Like maybe, I don't know when IoT started becoming a thing. I mean, it started off, at least for me, as a bit of a meme. People like, yo, my kettle's connected to the internet. I'm like, okay, cool, bro. I mean, like, I don't know why you'd need that, but whatever. But now it's moved into there's actual use cases for it, smart metering and those things. So now we're moving into an area where there's a lot of devices doing meaningful work, and maybe everybody has one.
And a lot of devices that I don't understand why they're connected to the internet, but
they are. Yeah. So I think from that point of view, it's like now it's very applicable. And I can see, just as Erlang made sense for the phone switching system, a lot of the ideas there are present in the IoT world when you're dealing with a lot of devices. So I think Erlang naturally fits into there. And as I said, you can always do these things outside of the language, whatever. But like in the real world, I'm talking hobby programming aside, you want to start writing something as soon as possible. And Elixir gives us stuff like, at the beginning, you get all of these guarantees. And it's kind of a no-brainer for companies that are doing this sort of data processing and networking in this sort of manner to use it. So, I think it has a unique sort of value proposition there that other languages just simply don't have.
Yeah, I agree. And like every time I prepare for like someone that has worked on a nerves thing, or they talk about any IoT stuff, I just want to think about like, what's a little side project I can start and get my hands on hardware again? Because like there's something really cool, and like there's a level of like complexity added once you start messing around with hardware versus just software. Like yeah, I write code that goes onto hardware, but I don't really ever have to think about making hardware like talk to each other or flash a physical light or whatever it may be, or broadcast a radio signal. Like, so I'm just always so tempted. I need a good little side project to start playing around with to get my hands.
I think, I think it's one of those things where if you want to start off, you just start off with like the most basic thing that's out there. Write some Elixir code using nerves or using circuits, the one library for doing the GPIO on Raspberry Pis. Just blink an LED. That's the first thing you can do. And then, move that to like a little button you push. And then soon, before you know it, you'll have a button that you push and it, I don't know, turns your kettle on. I don't know. It does something.
There we go.
Makes you coffee. And it's,
I took a Raspberry Pi once. This would be like 10 years ago. And I made like an LED analog clock kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
So I took like a metal gear. So I worked in manufacturing, in the manufacturing world. So I always had like, old gears and things. And I drilled, how many LEDs did I put around this thing? I think I had like 120 LEDs, and I drilled holes for every single one all the way around this like metal sprocket. And I had like, what I enjoyed the most was I think I was like very limited to outputs, right? I think I only had like 4 or 8, right? And I have 120 LEDs that I want to individually control. So that was fun. Like I started playing around with like actually doing like kind of like binary counting through an analog or through an on-off switch, I guess you would call it. But so that was fun. And I made a little clock in it. It worked. It didn't keep time perfect, but it worked.
Hey, you know what they say with clocks? Even if they're broken, they're right twice a day. So
that's true. Very true. Well, unless it keeps moving.
Oh, then it's never right. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. It's
Well,
just
it depends what time zone you're in. If you just travel the world a little bit, it will
that's
eventually be
true. There
corrected
we go.
sometime.
But yeah, so like that was fun. I think like a radio project would be fun. That would be cool.
I think the thing that makes those projects fun is that you end up doing something outdoors. I mean, you can do radio stuff indoors, but it's kind of boring. It's like you got these radios that can do such a long distance, and putting them next to each other.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and there's a lot you can do. Then it's like it ends up doing. You start doing stuff in the hardware, like the enclosure for it, how you're going to power it, and the software, which is also. And then there's a lot of other things. Like, I mean, whatever it is that you end up doing with it, it's like, okay, well, I need to maybe ensure that, like, it still works even if it powers down and then powers up later, because and that's why I say it's a perfect fit for Elixir, because there's all of these
See,
unreliability things.
I remembered the problem now why I never want to get back into it, because it makes you have to buy things. Like
Yeah,
you
you
get
do
into
spend a lot of
IoT,
money.
now I need a 3D printer because I have to make
Yeah,
custom cases for all my hardware and boxes that I put into
I've
Elements.
I've I've somewhat offloaded that. I have a friend that I studied with in a few towns away. He's like my 3D printer guy now, so thankfully I have a fix. But
Nice.
yeah, if I didn't have that, it can become, and it's not even just that. The enclosures, of course, in the 3D printer, but it's like the parts you need. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can rack up a bill quite quickly, and it's not stuff that you can really find secondhand necessarily. Because when you
Yeah.
find it secondhand, it's normally broken.
I had Peter Ulrich on a couple
Mhm.
times, but one of our conversations, he wants to build like a self-sailing like IoT sailboat that could
Oh,
go
okay.
over the Atlantic. And so he was talking about that, and then how he also now needs, I think he might have a 3D printer, but it's just like all these things, it just adds
Oh,
up for
well, the
just
the
little
sail
toy
the
projects.
sailboat aspect is like you might be mentioning the 3D printer part. Like, I mean, is this like a human, like, life size sailboat, or?
It would be small, like
Oh, okay, we
big,
saw, because I was
but it
about to
has to
say,
be
like,
big enough to survive the ocean.
that's
I don't
true.
know.
Because I was going to say, like, hey man, the price concern, the 3D printer ain't the problem, yeah, man. The sailboat's going to be the real kicker.
That's true. Yeah, you just buy a full-size sailboat and throw some servos on it.
Yeah, easy,
Yeah,
and maybe
easy.
a backup person just in case something goes
Just so
wrong.
you
But
don't crash your sailboat.
yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, well, that might
That
be a nice way to get an insurance payout. So you never know. Yeah, my boat
yeah.
crashed itself.
And then Brian Cardarella with Dockyard, he sails a lot and has like
Mm-hmm.
he races sailboats and things. And I know he has I think he has a Nerves project where they do like live data collection of like airspeed, water speed, all that stuff. I don't know that much about it, but it sounds like a pretty cool project.
No, it does. I think that's the thing. If once you start integrating it with something sort of real world, then it gets a lot more interesting, because it's yeah, I think it's interesting to be able to control something. Especially if it's like maybe a miniaturized sailboat. It's something physical, and it's kind of, a lot of the time I feel with programming, you always feel that you're kind of trapped in this virtual world. It's like, yeah, you're writing software that runs on a computer, and it doesn't really get
Mhm.
out of that like confined space. But when you start doing stuff with IoT, it quite quickly does, and that's when I think it
Yeah.
gets very fun, challenging, but fun as well.
Well, like when I used to do like machinery stuff, it was really cool. Like you're timing a physical machine that builds a
Mm.
product, and then you like see your work accomplishing a task, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
really cool. It's cool.
No, definitely, it is.
But
It is. It's I mean, I think I have a friend that he does some stuff with like a computer vision, um, like on production lines, detecting anomalies and stuff, and it's actually it's very impressive. I mean, it's just wild to see what you can do. You take your normal your average factory, and what people used to manually do. Now you're able to do all these complicated things, and like you said, the whole thing, like precise timing, and at the end of the day, you get something that's like almost a perfect product.
mhm.
It's For me, that's the magic, because I don't understand all of it, so I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's very magical. But I do think, even for somebody like you that does understand it, it still is very impressive
Well,
at the
what's
end of the day.
wild, so like I would rebuild like hydraulic systems with like vector drives and servos.
Mm.
And mechanical elements of anything, mechanical timing, like cams and all that, it is so complicated and like way over my head. Like I'm impressed that we have engineers out there that just
Mm-hmm.
understand that, like, because it gets really complex and you have
That does.
very simple solutions, but everything like size matters. And but like you have,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, 5 of
And the
these cams in a
margins,
row.
and the margins you have to operate in terms of timing, and that then goes down the whole other route of like, real-time operating systems, all of those sort of things. It's very interesting, and
Yeah.
it's something I haven't looked at that much, but I think I
But
could go
like
down a rabbit hole with it.
what I was saying is like I ripped out all these mechanical things and put things that you can trigger exactly when you want them to do it,
Mm-hmm.
like a servo, a PLC, a programmable logic controller. Like these things were so simple to me versus the
Yeah.
systems I was replacing. And then like the cool thing was like when you have things that are mechanically timed, right? Like a hydraulic pump just always runs. So
Mm-hmm.
you're just always wasting energy, but you're only like using the machine, at certain times of the,
Yeah.
of the process. And what the coolest thing for me was when we like monitored, um, you know, electricity, like power consumption, when like you're only firing things when you need them. We took like 99% of wasted power just from not running a pump constantly, and like seeing things like that are really cool. And those are like kind of like
Mm-hmm.
things, at least like when I started, I was young, I didn't even think about that being like such a positive. And
Mm-hmm.
then the accidental aftermath of it it's a cool thing to see.
No, it is. There's a lot of there's I think also there's a lot of things that you before you get into something like a big system that you just take for granted, like it just works that way. But when you look at it, it's like, no, there's a lot of effort that's been put in to make these things also optimal,
Hmm.
and sometimes in ways that it's just it's very impressive. I don't know how they do it, but those engineers, they're pretty smart. I can say that.
Yeah, I'm one of those. I'll always say I'm smart enough to use really smart people's creations.
Exactly. That's perfect. That's perfect.
So, should we talk about nerves and what it is and how
Yeah,
like you
sure.
could apply it to like IoT?
Yeah, sure. So I actually prepared some notes, for this. I thought I was going to get this question.
Because this is how we
Um,
suck you into Elixir. We make you talk
I
about it.
know this is how it happens, man. This is the gateway drug, so to speak, and it's going to happen. I can see it. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
I think with and there's a few things I want to cover about nerves that actually really impressed me. It's obviously, it's an Elixir. It's more than a framework, I'd argue, but it's a framework for doing a lot of and it's like a framework from start to finish. So if we start at the top portion, you're writing some code for IoT and Elixir. And you're doing it because you get all the benefits for reliability, like we've discussed in the examples. What Nerves does that sort of surprised me because I wasn't expecting it was that it provides a whole entire tool chain for obviously coding whatever you need to code. Um, it includes a whole very secure deployment model so that, obviously you're going to throw these devices out in the field. You need a way to, you're not going to go all the way there and travel with another SD card, to update the firmware. You want to be able to do it
Hmm.
online, and then you need to be able to do it securely. So there's also a lot of cryptography involved in that. They even developed, from one of the talks I was watching, a hardware security module, a little chip that's actually used to store the cryptographic keys, and you can put that on the back of a Raspberry Pi. So they've thought this whole thing through from the deployment side. And then logs, obviously, you check in on these machines to make sure that your code is running fine. And then the other aspect that also sort of is important and that I think is maybe underappreciated is when you're doing embedded stuff, a lot of the time you need to install, and this depends on what platform you're deploying to. So if you're deploying to a machine that's an ARM machine or a MIPS machine or RISC-V, whatever it is, um, the normal process is you need to install all of these packages, this whole tool chain for a whole entire different platform. You need to have this like god ugly like make file that links a bunch of other things and does all of this stuff. And it's a headache, I presume, And what Nerves does that impresses me is that you just type in a single command, you tell it what your target platform is, like, hey, I want to deploy to the Raspberry Pi. It then goes ahead, packages everything up for you, creates an image file that you can then flash to the SD card. And then where the magic really happens is you put this SD card into your Raspberry Pi, and it's going to be able to run your code. It has all of that. It can be managed on a web interface that Nerves runs. They have a cloud-hosted one, but you can also run it on premise. And we've been talking a lot about failures during runtime. But what about failures in terms of your storage, where the firmware is actually stored, the actual code itself? And they have this really interesting mechanism. It's kind of like, it's not unique. They didn't invent it, but it's basically your code gets deployed on a writable partition A, and then there's another partition B. And it always points to A, and then when you want to upgrade your code, it will write it into partition B. Then it switches over to that if everything checks out. So it'll perform, like a checksum over it. And you always have the other partition to roll back to. Because that's another thing that, you need to obviously take into account is, you need to upgrade. Sometimes you also need to roll back. So you don't just have runtime reliability provided by Elixir and the VM. You also get sort of reliability at the lower level as well, which is also important because, if your firmware doesn't boot.
I was going to say it's kind of like node clustering where you have no downtime between, a massive distributed system, but it's just, a partition essentially instead.
Yeah, and then the other
no
thing
downtime,
also is
right?
no downtime effectively. And if something does go wrong, there is a way to at least, like maybe 5-second downtime. You can at least revert it to the old partition, reboot, and you're up and running again. And the other thing that's also quite important is that, so there's that A partition and B partition for the user code. Let me put it like that. And then the sort of, the Elixir platform and the other code and then the operating system and all of that is on a read-only partition. So there's a third partition. And read-only for obvious stuff so that, it doesn't by mistake get written to by your application. So they've really segregated these things at that level to make it reliable. And then you're also writing Elixir on top of it. So you're getting runtime reliability. So yeah, it's like for me, it's a no-brainer. And it's also easy, as I mentioned, on the command line. A little few commands you type in and you can generate an image file and flash it. And, it is that simple. You go online, you see the tutorial videos, it's brain dead.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Just for the reason to start an IoT project, because you can still write Elixir. See, you don't know this yet, but you're about to. You're never going to want to write in another language once you start.
I feel it. I feel it coming. I'm getting I'm starting to. You sort of have things you grow up with where like, oh, maybe that isn't true anymore. And like slowly it's fading away and in comes the new knowledge of Elixir. And it's like, maybe this is the way to do programming. So, I was convinced by the Nerves thing. Let me put it like that, because I want to do a lot of these projects and it solves a lot of the hard things that normally kept me away from doing it. And well, it's also got Elixir and you have to write Elixir when using it. So it's probably a good way to get me to, you've cornered me very well. I see what you're doing with this podcast. You're getting me to write Elixir. So it's good.
Yeah.
We'll be there very soon.
I don't want to publicly announce anything because I don't know if it's like a secret project, but I talked to a guy that is like doing a really cool startup using Nerves and microcontrollers and kind of like distributed. I'm not going to say the product, but it's like basically like out in nature, or not nature, but the real world, the wild, where people live and interact. But like they're creating really good, like, we'll call it, it's not even close to this, but like imagine just like vending machine kind of things that can all communicate and talk and all using Nerves and microcontrollers and all solar powered. And it's like just your own.
The perfect project, honestly.
Yeah.
It takes all
really
the boxes.
Cool. And I believe it's like a very well-funded startup at this point, which is really cool. And now that reminds me
say, that's what I like to see, because I feel like there's like sort of things where you can write something in a language and you're doing it just because you want to learn the language, which isn't a bad thing. But it is impressive when you see a company that's like, we're actually going to put time into this. We're going to do it in Elixir. We're going to use Nerves. No matter what it takes, even if we have to, onboard new developers and they need to learn Elixir, it says a lot when they're using, something like this on a large scale. I think
Isaac said that he's been trying it for 2 years now.
I keep saying I'm going to learn Elixir, and then I'm like, oh, I started learning OCaml by accident. So I need to stop learning other languages. Oh, it just keeps happening to me.
Gustav Meyer said he's pretty attached to D-Lang. It'll be a miracle to get him away from that.
Oh, yeah. I do that. But this is a good thing. I choose very, at least, esoteric languages relative to what's popular. And, in my vision, and I don't mean this as in a bad way, but for me, Elixir fits into that. Let me put it like this. It's not Java. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Dude, God. I dropped out. I started a master's program and all they were teaching was Java. And I dropped out because it was just slowing down my education.
Dude, you couldn't take the abstract singleton bean factory static builder. You couldn't handle it anymore.
I couldn't. It was bad. I actually was like, I don't actually think I know how to program or want to.
I think Java does give partial brain damage, and you can't recover from it. So get out when you can.
Well, I have PTSD just from 2 semesters.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're wondering why I am the way I am, it's the severe trauma caused by doing Java. So
I was wondering, but now that actually
the answers are all
that answers a lot of questions.
Now things check out. But yeah, so just getting back to the Elixir stuff, it fits my sort of niche of learning languages that are quite different. So D-Lang, whenever I bring it up, they're like, oh, you programming D? What is that? Like C, but worse. And I'm like, no, dude, it's just you can look it up. It's a language. And, I did it because I thought it was interesting. I did OCaml a little bit because it was very different. And Elixir has something to offer that I haven't done yet. So I can't promise anything, but I do think I'm going to be a bit of a Elixir programmer myself. What can I say? I think it's going there.
Said it sounds possible that there's a turning point that's been reached, and then Isaac said if we can't get him with nerves, I don't know what will work.
No, that's true. It checks everything. It's literally everything I want, but it's in Elixir, so I have to do it.
And then we have LXD. He said, watching this as a Java developer. I'm sorry, buddy.
Hey, well, it takes one to know one, what can I say? Java's an all right. It's it's like your grandmother. You can't change her ways, and she's wholesome. You don't want to. You just want her to be the way she is. And she tries to do stuff that's a little bit new age. The equivalent in Java is adding, I don't know, virtual threads and all these other things, functional features. But at the end of the day, it's still Java.
One of my first side project things that I did was I actually wrote a web scraper with Java, and it was hideous, but it worked.
I can imagine, because normally with web scraping, my go-to from just experience, because I took a data science course at university, I think we used Scrapy, the Python library.
I mean, there are probably better solutions, but I was I was trying to learn Java because at the time that's when I was learning it.
And you were trying to like it as well. You're trying to do something I can like it. What you were trying to do with Java is basically, I can fix her. You can't fix it. It's just broken, man. You just can't, man. Just get out whilst you can, man. But Elixir,
leave her before she kills you.
She's a lovely lady. Yeah, but Elixir, she's a lovely person. So you got to make your choice. You choose which way to go. But I think I can see myself doing something IoT-ish with nerves. And I think, when I want to learn a language, I have to do something interesting in it. At least now, I'm not a person, I'll read the documentation. I like understanding the nitty-gritty details, but I need something to kind of convince me or to I need to build something. So I think it's, maybe it's fate. It's destiny.
All right. Let's start thinking up, guys. Give us ideas, nerves projects.
As you said, it's what we discussed. It's what we discussed earlier. It's the whole, you giving ideas for people to do it. No, they need to give their ideas so I can do it for them.
Yeah, time to turn this around, guys. Give us your $1 million ideas that you're not doing anyways. Come on.
I will donate the money. Maybe not, but
don't say that. If you make money, run with it, man.
Maybe I'll start my own podcast. Who knows?
You should. I mean, I think they're fun. it allows me to be lazy. Like everyone will be like, that doesn't make sense.
Mm.
Podcasting's hard. Like you have to go out of your way to find. Yeah, but I don't have to read about what anyone's working on. I just be like, oh, I heard you're doing something cool. Come on as a
Yeah,
guest
that's
and
true.
tell me
You
about
get
it.
the other person to do 90% of the talking. That's true.
Yeah.
It's actually a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Um,
And then like
okay,
I jump in every once in a while with really dumb questions and it's
yeah.
perfect, you know?
What is a radio, Tristan? It's like, oh, good question. Thanks for asking, man.
Exactly. Well, like for instance, like LoRa,
Hmm.
I had no, I mean, like I like obviously I can Google things and
Yes,
I
yeah.
like I understood that like the concept of it, but like I don't know, like is there if you were to build like a legitimate project, like say something that you wanted to monetize with radio broadcasting, mesh networks, is there anything that comes to mind? Like, is there any really cool use case that you'd want to tackle?
It's hard for me because I've always been, when it comes to like building these things with mesh networking, I've always been a guy that likes building the sort of like the infrastructure itself and then assuming people will use it for something. But if I was to build something like an application, a use case, um, okay, my use case is there's no way you could monetize this. It's just stupid. But I have ideas of like, I don't know, tying like 50 sirens and a bunch of like really bright lights like on top of like the roof or something, and then being able to trigger it from anywhere in the world. It's a nuisance. It's like a stupid toy. But that's probably what I'd end up doing. The thing is, I don't have. I'm terrible at business ideas. Like I'm like I'm the code guy, but I cannot, for the love of me, come up with good ideas. Okay, I'll give you one though. Maybe this is a common one. It's not anything special. Um,
By the way,
many people
don't
have.
feel bad
Yeah.
because we haven't gotten any ideas in the comments. So all these guys
Yeah, well, okay. I don't feel that bad then.
all these guys listening are just code guys with no ideas
Yeah, no,
apparently.
they're quick to chime in, hey, about Java, but like as soon as they ask for ideas, hey man, they don't got anything. Um,
Crickets.
I think an interesting project, and this is kind of one that's it's realistic. I think is if you have an irrigation system at home, the first thing you can try and do is don't, instead of going out to spend a bunch of money on all-in-one solution, you get a bunch of, and I actually have some parts to this, so I actually know where this is going. I bought myself like an 8 relay controller that I can wire stuff to. My idea was to wire them to the solenoid controllers for the sprinkler system we have at home. Yes, they're connected to a Raspberry Pi. Yes, I could put nerves on them. I know where this is going now. So you could do
We
something
got
as
them,
simple as
guys.
that.
We got
Well, we
them.
got. Dude, I ran into that. That was a mousetrap.
Yeah.
I took the bait. But yeah, I think something like that it's an easy thing to do. It has an immediate, like, obvious benefit. You can control your sprinklers from the toilet. I don't know why you do that, but you could, or from your bed, which is more likely. A lot of people, they a common thing, at least where I am, is like you'll be in bed and then you want to turn the sprinklers on so that it does something at 6 o'clock in the morning. You sleep, and then when you get up, there you don't go outdoors and get sprayed by water.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think something like that. And I know it sounds very simple. It's not like very luxurious of an idea, but it's a simple one and it's easy to get started with, and it teaches you the fundamentals. You can buy one of those relay controllers online. They interact with the Raspberry Pi using GPIO. There is a circuits library on Elixir for interacting with GPIO devices. So you hit the ground running like very quickly, and
Dang
then
it.
you just
I'm buying a
software.
Raspberry Pi and some
Oh,
sensors
you got to do
today.
it, man. You
I
got to.
just
I'll
know it.
actually, like, after the show, I'll actually send you a bunch of like links to the things I've bought, and then you can put the two and two together and
All right, we're
start
building
working on it,
something.
man.
Between the two
Yeah,
of us, we're both going to build something.
definitely, definitely.
You know what I always wanted to do, and I've never done it, but I always thought it would be really cool to do like private security systems for like
Yeah,
very
yeah,
niche reasons, right? Where you can't afford to have like a well-known company that could
yeah,
like
yeah.
have vulnerabilities and things, but like it would be cool to have like automatic shutting like shutters and like
Mm.
safe rooms and like all these things, but like wired in a way that like it's if it is physically hacked or connected to, you have like ways to
And
still prevent
it's an
bad
interesting
acting.
thing, something like that, because there's a lot of sort of inputs you could have to a system like that, and it's very event driven. So it's like you could have something outside where you get those laser beams, like they're basically virtual tripwires, and you could have that as a trigger, and that feeds something into your system over the network, and then you have like a central thing running that's written in Elixir, and these events flow through like effectively a flow diagram of different things, and they can trigger other events like shutting. Closing the shutters, or closing or opening the garage door. So there's a lot of use cases there, and there's also, as you mentioned, it's I'm also very, when it comes to like sort of security in your house, like I'm very against the commercial options for like cameras and stuff like that. I don't care how much AI and cool stuff it does. You can
Dude,
do
I
all of
don't
that locally
trust
now
people.
anyways.
Like, I
No,
don't
man,
even
there's
like the Ring cameras and stuff. You guys are putting these in your
no way,
house and
man.
just letting Amazon, just Jeff Bezos freaking VPNing in and checking you out.
It's the weirdest thing. I mean, like even for me, like, and I'm like, look, I'm not a Luddite. I just choose not to buy these things. But like an Amazon Alexa like, home on, man, like, it's like people comment like, "Yo, man, the FBI is in my walls. They're listening to me." I'm like, "Ah, but then you went out to buy the thing you talk to." I mean, this is
Right.
weird,
I mean,
man.
my problem is though,
It's
they're just using this and listening anyways. So,
That's the other thing. Like, even me, I'm a bit of a hypocrite. Like, my phone's right next to me. It's right
yeah.
here. For all intents and purposes, it's listening to me. So, yeah, and that gets back to the thing we said, before the show. I'm trying to like declutter my life, so maybe the phone will disappear as well. But in place
Actually,
of it,
so I do have one device that I really like. I have like one of those August locks, so it opens with your
oh
phone.
yeah,
It's Bluetooth. I should like hijack their hardware and reprogram it to work better with like
or like
this.
do like a you could do something maybe where you capture using Wireshark. You can actually log the Bluetooth traffic, and you could hope that it's probably encrypted or something like that. But you could maybe figure something out.
Yeah.
There's always a GitHub repo where some person in some obscure place in the world has like reverse engineered this for their specific use case, and then you find their code and you use it and it works. So yeah, I think, but yeah, getting back to the project side of doing things, it's kind of like home automation-ish sort of security stuff. I think the sort of upside of also like writing it yourself is that you don't get all of the bloat with all the other systems. Like, I feel like there's a lot to, and I've been tempted with the home automation stuff, but I always think about it's another thing I have to maintain in my home lab, and it's like, if I just write something that's simple, I deploy it using nerves. It does just that. I can update it when I need to. It won't do anything less, and it won't do anything more, but it will do what it needs to very well. And I think, yeah, there's quite a lot of projects one could do around their house, and do it in Elixir, of course.
There you go. Yeah. You can make now. So what you were complaining about network issues when we first were right before we got started.
Oh yes, yeah.
Let's talk about your home network. What is?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how I botched my initial joining to the call. No, so I don't even know. It might have actually worked after some time, but you said, did I keep like rejoining and leaving?
Yeah, it was
what
like
appeared like on your side.
it looked like you were disconnecting and reconnecting over and over.
I was in and out. What can I say? No, so it's so I have two networks at home. One of them's IPv4, or what I like to call network for geriatric people, because it's incredibly old and it's like not nice. And then there's IPv6, which is like, I can't even say it's new. It's 20 years old. It's like, maybe some people are going to say, "Oh, Tristan, it's such a joke. Nobody uses it." I'm like, I do. And then when I try and join a call like this, I went to shower and I was thinking, I should really try and join this call over my IPv6 network, because I'm like, you don't put something together in your home lab and then not use it. You have to be
That's
proud
true.
about what you put together.
Yeah.
And I had a thought. I'm like, it's probably not going to work, because this site, this video.ninja, which we're using for this, I was thinking like, I don't know, maybe it will work. I was able to load it and everything. And then I go over to LinkedIn, because I'm like, I can't see the other guy. Oh, where's my man Jacob? Where is he? And he's like, no, you're dropping in and out. And I'm like, I knew this was going to happen. It was just going to happen. So yeah, it's normally down to the individual site. A lot of them support dual stack, so they can work on v4 and v6. And I have a bunch of stuff that I'm running at home that also lets me visit sites that only have IPv4 connectivity. But even sometimes that doesn't work. I think the biggest culprit normally is everything works, but if you code an application and you hard code IPv4 addresses instead of domain names that point to those addresses, then the system I have for mapping between it's basically, it hijacks the DNS and does a bunch of NAT. But if you're doing like just a raw IPv4
so what you're saying is
breaks.
On my like DigitalOcean droplets, I should set up the...
You should check that option that says
yeah,
V6. Yeah, you should. You should join the club, man. What can I say? You know, if I'm going to do Elixir, you got to join the V6 club, and then you can join.
You know what? I'll even send you a screenshot and be like, you can now
it's like
visit
proof.
my
I've
website.
done it. And then the best thing is you can join the smallest minority on earth, IPv6 circle jerkers on LinkedIn, which includes me. Basically, people that just complain about IPv6 not being deployed on some site. So, you know.
And how many people are a part of this group?
Me, some guy from Brazil, and some guy from some Nordic country. It's like 3 people. Hey, dude, a 4th member would gladly welcome you. I mean, come on, like, you know, it's a little bit lonely out there, man. I mean, it's the comment sections. We're not winning, dude. I could say we're not winning, man.
That's funny. Isaac says we need to connect you to Lars Wickman. I've been trying to get Lars on here. He's very busy though. He's very involved in the nerves stuff.
No, I think that would be.
He does the what is the is it Beams? What is that podcast? Beam Radio maybe? Yeah, Beam Radio. Because that's with why do I always blank on names when I'm live? But you have Alex Kotmos, Bruce Tate, and I think Lars is on there. I feel like there's other names, and I'm blanking on them right now. But it's a pretty good podcast.
No, I think it would be I think what you need to do is, you know, you need to get yourself that Raspberry Pi. You need to start doing something with it, and then get that guy on, because I think that would be, and even for me, it would be a sort of, you know, I've just skimmed the stuff on Nerves, and I've got a good idea of where I could start with it, but it would be very interesting to kind of see also where it is now. Because when I took a look at it, I took a look at like a talk about Nerves from a few years ago. And
I'll have to try to get Justin Schneck on, or I think that's his name. What was that? I think Justin Schneck. I think he's let me Google him. Yeah, he's part of the Nerves project as well. He would be a good guest. But yeah, I got to start like getting messy and breaking things, and then
because then you have you know, all the questions you can ask, you know. So it's
exactly. I had to be prepared with dumb questions. Be like, okay, so how do I embed Elixir on this microcontroller? I tried to get started, but I didn't get
you know, the answer to that from him was basically like, did you read the documentations? Like,
oh, I guess we should change the question. How do I read the documentation?
But from what I've seen, it looks, because a lot of the times when they did the demos of Nerves on a bunch of like talks that are presentations, they would go step by step through their actual own documentation, and it looked like, I cannot stress, it was incredibly easy. I was, as I said, I was astounded. Doing a lot of the stuff, it's not the coding part. The coding is easy. It's the putting everything together, building this image, having this whole system for managing it, the deployment model, being able to remotely deploy and upgrade. It's like, I mean, I've never seen a project that does all of those things at once with a single command to like set it up. So
that is nice. That's cool.
It's different. Let me put it like that.
And I love good documentation. See, that's another reason to come over to Elixir. I would say like the majority of our you know, your daily drivers, all the documentation is amazing.
Oh, well,
and Elixir in general. Elixir and Phoenix, like those, like you'll never have better docs in your life. Other than like Stripe documentation is probably top tier of documentation.
I think if I'm to get started, the thing that's really drew me to Elixir and like got my interest originally was probably Phoenix LiveView. or that Phoenix, or the LiveView aspect of Phoenix. So I'm probably going to start there, and I think that's a good way. I mean, come on, like when you learn a language, it's like, I'll make a little web app or whatever. It's
Oh,
a
for
good way to
sure.
start.
You know, I admit Phoenix LiveView is the first time I enjoyed being, well, like I never wanted to do any web front end because I hate it. And then Phoenix LiveView is the first time that I actually did like web front end, and it was fun.
No,
but like
I think I'd start there, yeah.
I came from iOS, and so I was an iOS developer for a very long time, and I enjoyed that kind of front end work, but I just always hated web. And then
web was never designed to be, like, let's be real, it was never designed to make apps. It was meant to be HTML is like a document language. I mean, it's like akin to running macros in a Word document. But people,
we had really shitty options when the internet came, right? And they just made the available options work, and then it just
and I mean, think of the standard. I think of the things that went by the wayside. I mean, I grew up with, like, Adobe Flash Player, like Macromedia, and those were good days. I'm gonna be real. There's a lot of nostalgia involved with that. But then there was, I think Microsoft had like Silverlight. I mean, I don't want to say I'm showing my age, but I mean, that was like a project that just died like as it got started. And then I think the real OG was, like, if you remember, like Java applets or like ActiveX, all of those things you'd load in your browser. You'd always get a warning. It's like, you're running this code. It could do something to your computer. Now we run JavaScript, and I guess it's fine, there's a sandbox and everything. But I think it turned out good, the standardization of stuff. Like, I'm happy that Flash is gone, because now you can write web apps that work and everything. But I'd agree, every time I've done any web-related stuff, it doesn't feel nice. I think if you're used to it, then it's all right, but it can be done better, and in a way that doesn't require us scrapping everything, which is the Phoenix approach, basically.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to get started in a serious web project, and I want to learn Elixir, of course, then I'm going to start there, because I really do not want to touch. I want to touch as little as possible of, like, JS and, like, I mean, you mentioned animations and stuff. That's fine. But everything else, I want to be able to just code in my IDE. I don't want to have to load additional plugins and then see my RAM usage skyrocket because it's like running the latest, I don't know, JS framework code somewhere. Like, I want to code. And then I want to, go over to it and see my code deployed and see the buttons appear.
And let's be real. If you're building more of like admin dashboards and stuff, you don't need animations on that. You just need functionality.
That was what I was kind of getting towards. I'm probably going to build something. I'd like to build something for, controlling the relays on that relay controller I have. That's would be my starting point. So, it's not anything that, and the thing is, you can still make it look nice. I mean, you just chuck some CSS, some Bootstrap, whatever.
Exactly.
Looks pretty good.
One thing I am very happy about is AI is really good at CSS and like Tailwind and all of that. So like when I suck at building something that looks nice, Claude is there for me.
I can imagine. Yeah, and that's great because, dude, nobody, you don't get a trophy for understanding CSS, but you got to do it to get it right, and it is very difficult to get it right sometimes. So yeah, I mean, there's a easy win over there for whatever machine learning model you're using to prompt code your way up there. Don't vibe code too hard. Don't vibe code.
Well, the problem is you end up just wasting your time waiting on responses if you're trying to vibe code. Like I'll use it sometimes to do like refactors and polish up UI and like some like maybe rubber duck with it, but especially with Elixir, it's getting better, but you can't have it do a lot of heavy lifting. You have to do very micro movements if you're going to use
I'd imagine.
But yeah, I know a lot of people are like fully on board. I'm trying to make it more of like a daily tool because I think it is like a very powerful tool.
No, I think so.
I just like, I'm always on the fence. I'm always like, why am I doing this? I can just write this.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, look, and I think it changes with every generation. I always think that with programming, like we're also spoiled for choice with, we can just instantiate objects and have garbage collectors, so I can't be completely hypocritical. But there is an aspect of it to me. I think for the assistive coding, like you simply do not know how to do something. It's basically a better search engine. It does that very well, you know, and that it's like I'm on board with that. I haven't used it yet, but I've seen some people use it for those cases. I'm like, wow, that beats going onto Stack Overflow. And, you know, Stack Overflow never helps you. You basically find a guy telling you, you're doing it wrong, and I'm not going to help you.
I will say I do use it more than I think I Google things, honestly, because you don't have to page through anything anymore. It's just,
no, you don't. It filters it down, and it basically is figuring out how to explain it to you in a way that's helpful. So that's where I am with it, I think. I wouldn't necessarily write a whole program with it, because for me, the whole thing about programming and like learning how to program was, you know, it was a struggle when you begun. I mean, I know back in school, I struggled with math, for example, and I'm not that smart. I know my degree might say mathematics on it, but I'm pretty dumb, to be real. And with programming, you know, I had to put a lot of effort into learning programming, and it's not a thing of like me seeing other people program stuff and, you know, they're doing it easier. I don't really care about what others are doing with programming in that sense.
Yeah.
But it's like I find pleasure in programming. Like I like the challenges. And yeah, I don't see myself as a vibe coder. I mean, I got good vibes, but I don't vibe code, you know. So I think it's good.
One day we'll get you vibe coding too.
One day. Oh no, dude, you're gonna see my first Elixir project is all vibe coded, man.
Oh gosh,
I'm gonna come to you on your podcast, and I'm gonna be like, "Can you debug it for me? It's not working, man. You told me Elixir can do this. It's not working."
Dude, we did joke. I think it was Daniel Bergholtz. He was on, and we were joking that it'd be funny to have do like a live stream with like 4 developers on like a relatively large project, but we're not allowed to like write code. We vibe code it. So we like plan the project, and then like the 4 of us, we all make commits and PRs to GitHub, and
you know what
we do our features.
If you saw, I don't know if you follow like the Primogen and all of those people online.
Oh yeah, I like the Primogen.
Yeah, they did a similar vibe coding thing. You should definitely do an Elixir one. I would watch that. Like, do it over a span of a few days. Book out.
I think it would be awesome, and to do it with like a team. So like you discuss the features, and then as you guys are all individually vibe coding, you just stream the conversation, and then you do PRs for like you do code reviews and.
You code review when you do vibe coding? Nah, man, we commit to master, man. What are you thinking about, man?
That's true. You're not allowed to turn it down, are you?
Yeah, there's no code review, man. The AI will code review it for you. But I think it's I was gonna say I think it's it would also there's also one other benefit to doing this in Elixir is the more you vibe code in it, the more better the model gets at doing vibe coding for Elixir. So it'll help people. You know?
So we'll have to think of like a really good project, and I think it'd be hilarious if I could get 2 or 3 other Elixir developers, and we just build the project live stream vibe coding.
Dude,
we can drink coffee all day.
Yeah, dude, definitely.
I haven't just recently got new vibe coding sunglasses, so.
Dude, you're halfway there. Why have you not started vibe coding?
So I think it would be such a fun. I think it would be a very entertaining stream.
I think so. I was about to say when you put those glasses on, it's like you know how to write stuff in Elixir. You put them on. I don't even know how to declare a variable anymore, so you can just vibe code it. You get
just
some cool music in the background.
It would be funny, and then all at the end too. Have it write deployment scripts and everything.
Yes,
and take it out, take it live.
Cool. And
take it live and see if anyone hacks us.
That as well. And also the other interesting thing is, you can write a bunch of stuff and you want to see when one of the actual, processes crashes. Because you don't know with vibe coding, there's 2 sort of things in vibe coding. It literally generates something with syntactical errors. Okay, it won't compile. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things that you can miss when you're vibe coding, which is the whole joke about vibe coding, is that you're not using it as an assistive AI. You're literally taking everything verbatim. It says you can have like serious logical flaws in there that create something that might crash now and then. And that would be, dude, you can vibe code with Elixir because it just restarts itself. Dude, it restores, man. It's going to be fine.
You wouldn't even know if your processes are constantly crashing, really.
You wouldn't. Dude, they could crash every 5 seconds. And if you do, depending on what you vibe code, what the actual project is, you could do something like a voice server where you can like, chat with friends or something like that. And like, oh, and then you check in the logs. Oh, it seems to have crashed 1,000 times in the last minute. It's like, oh, well, I didn't really hear much.
It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Just give it more GPUs, man.
Yeah, dude, literally, it's like just throw more digital ocean droplets at it. It'll be fine, man. Just scale it, man. Just scale it.
It's fine. It's crashing because we got to scale.
It's not our code. We're not the problem.
There's no way Claude would have fucked this up for us.
No, dude, it can't. Dude, the AI is perfect, man. I even thanked the AI and I said, pretty please, my family dies if the code doesn't work. How could the code have problems in it, man? I mean, it's bulletproof, man.
Yeah, but
come on.
Oh man.
Come on, put some trust in the AI.
Yeah. So maybe like you start vibe coding with Elixir, and that's your first Elixir experience. We'll get Isaac on here. We'll get Daniel on here.
Yeah, that could be a and it's also, the thing is, it also could a lot of the times I feel with programming is you need to be another way of learning is having a bunch of stuff thrown at you and then looking at the code and being like, because obviously if you've done a few languages, you can look at the syntax and you're like, okay, I see this is a function over here. But then you like I can point to be like, hey, Jacob, what's that thing over there? How does that work?
And I have a good entertainment +2. You are the only one that does the code reviews.
That could work though, because then I can try and learn something from it. I'm like, well, maybe it looks right. So you guys,
and you have to screen share. You have to screen share and talk it through.
So I think, guys, what we're looking at on line 5, you see, as the thing is, because I'd be learning Elixir at the same time, it's like either I don't know what's happening because it's in Elixir and I don't know it that well yet, or I do know, but I have no idea what the vibes have created over here. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't know. I think Elixir, honestly, is really easy to read, especially if you're already coming from any programming background. Mm-hmm. So, it's really easy to be like, oh, I understand what's going on. Once you understand how pattern matching and the pipe operator works.
Yeah, no, I've done that before. No,
then you're golden, because those are the only things that kind of throw you off if you don't really understand. Yeah. But I think this would be fun. I think I'm going to put a team of elite vibe coders together, and it's going to be a live stream.
Elite vibe coders. Yo, I found a guy just out of university. He's an elite vibe coder, man. Hey, I'm in the same camp, I'm in the same camp.
Yeah, hopefully you have cool sunglasses, or you can't vibe code with
us. Dude, I got some Ray-Bans somewhere, but they don't have vibes. Ray-Bans are too serious, man. That's like an old 70-year-old COBOL programmer. So I got Ray-Bans.
Well, if you're gonna roll with the Ray-Bans, you got to have the yellow lenses.
Of course, yeah.
I'm
coming up short. I just don't have them, man. I got
if they're too reflective, you're almost too cool in a Ray-Ban.
Well, if they're too reflective, how can you see your screen? I mean, you can only vibe code so much. I mean,
you don't have to see your screen. That's the point of vibe coding.
Text to speech. You
perfect.
ask it using voice or speech to text, and then it talks back to you. Dude, I could be blind. It's that whole thing about what is it? A blind man leading the deaf. This is like a vibe coder leading, I don't know, the non-Elixir programmer, something like that. It could work though. It can work,
Yeah, I like it. All right. On that note, I think it's the best way to wrap this up with our vibe coding project. I think it would be a lot of fun.
I think you should.
I got to figure out when I would have time, because I feel like it would be quite a few hours. It might have to be a weekend thing.
I think you need to, get a good idea of, get your team together and then decide what it is. Are you going to do a game or a web application? I think the IoT stuff can be fun. The reason I say that is because you can do fun stuff in the real world with IoT, so you can do some goofy stuff, with that. So I'd say maybe try to do something like that, throw some nerves into it, but you vibe code. The nerves are vibing. That's what you got to do.
The hard part with IoT and a bunch of remote people working on it is having the hardware and streaming. Yeah, I think it would be more entertaining if we can compile and build something on our screens. But
yeah, I think so.
I don't know what it is. It could be an Elixir game. That could be cool.
That could work, yeah. And those end up normally being the funniest, because you try play them through and you're like, oh,
and they just suck.
Completely broken. Yeah.
I have no idea what I'd be doing with front end stuff with with LiveView, but
Hmm.
it could be fun.
Yeah, I think an Elixir game that would also be like a first. Like I don't know how big the Elixir game dev community is, but this
Not
could be a
huge. I
great
think
addition to
there
it.
are games that have been made with it. It's just
Hmm.
it'd be difficult.
It's an interesting sort of value proposition in the sense it's like, yeah, my character's process died, it restarted.
The good thing is if we have Daniel on, he's kind of a front end, like he's a web guy. He
Hmm.
knows his React and stuff. Maybe I could pull in Andrew Stewart. He's a front end guy. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I
But
think
yeah,
something front endy, something like that, maybe like web game, something like that. I think you could, because it also has good comedic value. So I mean,
yeah. Well, and then like me trying to do anything with front end is just always comedic. So
well, you can do the stuff on the back end. You know, with you can ask the AI to, and this is a scary one. Write me a schema for my Ecto backed database, and then it just comes up with the most bizarre like SQL,
oh, Isaac said
column set
someone's
for you.
writing a WoW server in Elixir. Yeah, I've
That's
actually
cool.
been following his project, and it's really cool because I I've made like really small game servers, but like the idea of like the mass multiplayer thing is
Mm.
really cool. Like that's like, I mean,
And
that's just a
it
really
fits
good fit.
Elixir. You know, it
Yeah,
fits it.
like
Yeah.
the back end, it makes sense, right?
Mm.
The complicated part would be like the live view piece of the game, but it would be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's where you could fit in. You know, you get a bunch of people that are really good at the front end, and you do the back end for that. So you have a multiplayer game effectively. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think that would it shows it off well.
Yeah, where I have that bookmarked somewhere. The guy that built the WoW server has like a whole blog. Of course, I don't. I am so bad at organizing my bookmarks. It's ridiculous, but it's a really good project. I don't remember the guy's name, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd give him a shout
And
out. But
has he tested his an actual World of Warcraft like client against his server for like
that
um
I'm not sure. I'll have to go through it and.
because it'd be interesting to
Uh,
know how he tests it because that's kind of like once you get it to a certain working like level,
oh, you know
it's
that
quite interesting to play it.
Isaac as a Battleship would be a great game to build.
Hmm. Hmm.
Vibe
That could
code
work. Yeah,
Battleship. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that can work.
Okay. All right. Just
You got your
hours.
idea. There
It's
we
gonna
go.
just be hours of nonsense of
Uh,
idiocracy, but it'll be
It's
funny.
I think it's the getting started, getting the initial code there, but then you tweak it a little bit. No, I think you can
Yeah.
put a nice
Well,
battleship
it would
together.
start getting funny when you're like doing like small game testing and you have like
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
funky bugs and things. That's when it would be fun. And then trying to fix the bugs with vibe coding.
Yeah, you apply what we call a vibe patch, a vibe
Vibe
fix. Yes,
patch.
yeah.
All right. All right. Well, Tristan, it was awesome meeting you and talking. And now I'm going to want to go do nerves and IoT projects, but I think we got you hooked and you're going to start being an Elixir guy soon.
I dude, it's here. I'm here to stay. I'm gonna do it. It's on my
Awesome.
to-do list, my bucket list for this year. So
So
yeah,
everyone that
I
said that they
appreciate
had
coming
to,
on as well.
everyone that said they had to keep track and make sure you're making progress, just follow them
Yeah,
on
yeah.
LinkedIn. I linked it in the description.
They
So
can hold the sort of coals to my feet and like keep me on track to doing it.
exactly.
I will get started and I'll post updates. So you guys
Awesome.
can watch me.
Love
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
I learned quite a bit. It's radio frequencies and mesh networks. It's awesome. It's
It is.
complicated but yet simple, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of simple components interacting together, and then it
Yeah.
becomes complicated, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's like last week I had Andrea Leopardi on, and he
Mm-mm.
just wrote a network programming book. And it's like the same thing, like TCP, UDP, like they're all very like simple concepts when you get down to like the nitty gritty, but then
Yeah.
like the fact that they work so well and at scale is like where it gets
Mm-mm.
complicated. I mean, I don't think it's easy. I think it's very difficult, but like conceptually, when it's explained, it's a very simple
No,
concept.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's just you can only hold so much in your head at a time. You know, you work on one component, but you don't necessarily know about the other one. So when you look at everything, it's like, wow, it's overwhelming. I think that's actually really where the sort of complexity aspect comes in. It's like it's just very hard to look at everything as a whole.
I mean, everything's overwhelming. Like, I remember, like, I used to think I knew everything. Like, after, like, I want to say I was like 3 or 4 years into programming. This was a while ago. But you get cocky, right? You think you know it all.
Oh, you do,
And
yeah,
then,
yeah.
and then there's
I've had that.
you know, you're at the, what is the Dunning-Kruger curve? When you're at the top of Mount Stupid there. And then you realize how little you know, and then it stays that way, I think, the rest of your career.
It does, yeah, no, it does. And it humbles you. It's a good, humbling experience. I'm proudly very stupid. Like, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, you know, there's just so much out there, you know?
Yeah. Well, like, I work with a bunch of really smart guys, and then I always have really smart guests on here. And you just, to be in a position to always be learning, I think is pretty awesome.
And that's something I always think about. Like, it would actually suck to understand everything. Like, where would the joy and the challenges be? It would be boring. Like, I'd hate it. I would actually hate it. Like, so no, I think it's a pleasure not understanding.
I actually never thought about it that way. Like, just knowing everything. Imagine.
I think if somebody was able to do that, they'd probably be the most insufferable person ever because they wouldn't shut up. Which is the same as when you reach that point of where you think you know everything and then you get humbled. But if you stayed up there, no, it's not good. It's not good.
Isaac goes Sudoku. That might be too hard. There's too much like rules in that.
Yeah, well, that's even better for the vibe coding because it's like it'll immediately screw it up most likely.
That's true. Like, I think like Battleship is simple, right? Because it's like just a coordinate
and everybody knows it, you know. Everybody's played it as a kid, you know.
Honestly, tic-tac-toe is where I'm going. Like, super simple.
I'm pretty sure if you ask for a tic-tac-toe implementation, it will vibe code the thing in one go and you'll be done. Like, I don't think it'll require that much. It sounds way too simple.
You're making a game server. You have to have multiple dynamic gen
the game
servers.
Server, that's true.
Because like the way I don't think I would want to build it like very simple. Like, I don't want one gen server doing all the heavy lifting for a single game. No. I want like every user to have their own state, so their own gen server. I want the game to have a gen server, and then and then message passing between everything, and then you'd have to have kind of like a communication gen server, I think, that kind of talks. I don't know, I'm probably overcomplicating it. Maybe the game server just has the user server's broadcast updates. Maybe that's all it is.
I think something like that. But, you know, irrespective, like, as long as I think, look, it's the World of Warcraft example is nice because there's, you know, we know you can have multiple users in a game like that. With tic-tac-toe, it's normally just 2. So it would be interesting if it's something where you can get a lot of some game that
that's
you can get
true.
A lot
Battleship
of
is kind of 2 as well.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at something like some of those other board games. Like, I mean, I don't know if you could do like Catan or whatever it is, that other one with the little houses that you put around.
Oh, that could be
do
interesting.
Something like that. Could be interesting. But I think something with a lot of actions in it would be more interesting because, you know, if characters can move around a lot, that means more network traffic, more messages to handle. And that's where stuff really gets interesting or falls apart because the vibes just, you know, aren't right.
Yeah. Oh, this is hard. So guys, ideas for good multiplayer games where you're not limited. Like, you can have as many users join. I think that's the cool part, the main right? Thing, yeah, like mass multiplayer concept without too much complexity on the game logic. Because I think that can just get hard.
You could also try one of those. What are they? They used to be those games that you could like play, I guess, like over Telnet, where it's like one of those dungeon games where you like log in and you walk around. It's all text based. But you can have a lot of players logged in at a single time, and you know, it's doable as well. Unless you want to do something with a web interface. But my point is, with that's nice because you have to have also something handling that that like basically terminal session connecting to the game server to render stuff. So there's a lot of ways how you could play the same type of game.
I mean, that could be cool too. I think like any front-end UI interface is going to be cool, whether it's a terminal or web-based. I think so. Like, terminal is actually kind of cool because we don't do it a lot. Like, when was the
Mm.
last time, like I write like bash scripts and stuff, but I don't write like executables often that I'm
Yeah,
using
yeah.
through my
I think that
terminal.
could be interesting, especially if
Yeah.
there's like a I mean, I've seen at least from the sort of Rust community, they've got a lot of nice libraries for doing stuff in the terminal. So it'll be interesting to see if there's something in Elixir for that. And who knows, maybe you vibe code the first Elixir, console application helper library, so you can like make nice
I
UIs.
have written like terminal based executables with Elixir, but
Hmm.
I mean they're like very basic, like prompt,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, prompt
but
based. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's a local guy. Oh yeah, a local guy named Nathan at my Elixir meetup, which I've been slacking at. I haven't been making it the last couple times, but he made like a very like basic like poker,
Mm-hmm.
like I think it was just Hold'em, but he made like a
Yeah,
multiplayer game server and like walked through the project. And like poker is a cool
poker's a good
concept
one.
as
Yeah,
well. Yeah.
I think that's a
And
good idea.
he did it all in LiveView and then even did like Phoenix LiveView testing, which I'm really bad at writing tests for my front end.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also a cool thing to, ooh, do we
Yeah,
write
no,
a
I think
fully tested
yeah,
game?
that's the other thing because
Live?
you vibe the unit tests effectively for it or whatever. But I think yeah, it would be. I think for an idea like this, at least it has to be multiplayer. Like a lot of users, whether you do it on a web front end or a terminal one is up to you. I think the web's a little bit easier to test. Oh, well, you could test a terminal one also easily. And then the testing is an important part as well. It's like you vibe code the tests as well, and then you actually see where it breaks because it's
Yeah.
you want to pick up the corner cases, and those you
Well,
don't necessarily always pick up.
I've seen really funny like so I'll actually use Claude to write tests a lot for modules,
Mm.
but the problem is if the tests fail, it'll instantly try to just change the test to match the failure instead of fix the code. So like this is why vibe coding doesn't work, guys. You just need to have like logic behind everything that's happening. You'd be like,
Oh,
no,
that's so funny. That
that's
is
not the
hilarious.
outcome
Well,
we want.
but you did ask it. You asked the AI agent fix the unit test. What did it
That's
do? It
true.
did fix it. It did
It
fix
did
it.
fix it.
You have to
It's
say
just
fix it properly this time,
yeah.
please.
Don't fix the test, fix the
Yeah, yeah,
implementation
yeah.
of the code. Like
It's like a
the
competing
function is
version.
wrong. Yeah. But yeah. All right, cool. Thank you so much, Tristan.
It's a
We'll
pleasure.
have to have you back on once you have
When I'm an
your
Elixir dev, yeah, yeah.
exactly. You know, you are officially like the first non-Elixir guest that I've had on.
I
So
thought as much. I'm like, this is interesting, Like I told some of my friends who tuned in, I was like, it's kind of interesting, I'm not yet. I said yet though. I did say I'm not yet an Elixir dev. But yeah, I'm happy to have been converted during this
yeah,
holy Elixir session over here. So I
exactly.
think, yeah, if and whenever I do come back, I'm going to ensure that I've at least done something with IoT
See,
and Elixir.
that's all I'm here for. I just will bring people on as guests and sucker them into
Yeah.
seeing the light.
Yeah, I've seen the light, man. It's a hue in purple, something like that. I've seen the light, man. It's
Exactly.
purple colored.
Yeah. I mean, once you start writing Elixir, your walls just kind of turn purple.
I was wondering, like, I mean, does it get more intense the more Elixir you write? You can see mine's very like yellow over here,
Yeah,
So
so you
I
got
think
some
I need to
Elixir to
fix
do.
this. Yeah, I don't know what this is over here. I don't know. Oh, you know what this could be? This could be JavaScript.
It could
This could be
be.
JavaScript. It's very yellow, so I've got to change that
Yeah.
up. That's my New Year's resolution.
All right. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Tristan. And thank you, everyone
Cool,
that
man.
tuned in. And yeah, I have to get some guests booked. So if you guys know any um, awesome people in Elixir space, reach out to them or me. And yeah, because I feel like I don't have any. Oh, I take that back. I did just have someone book. I saw my notification. I just don't know when it is yet. But I just like, fly by the seat of my pants and just get people booked, just as I go.
Yeah, just as you go, man, and you end up with people like me. And now you've converted somebody to Elixir, so
Exactly. Well, I mean, the thing is, I like anyone writing and doing cool projects, you want to hear about it.
No, you do,
Because,
yeah.
like, so it's I don't mind having non-Elixir people. I mean, they're kind of gross, but then you get them converted.
You kind of, yeah, when they're converted, then they're like, you can join the club now, man.
Yeah,
We'll
you
let
can
in."
join now. We'll let you. You're less gross.
Yeah.
But all right, awesome. Everyone that tuned in, thank you. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you maybe next week if we get another guest booked. Boom. Testing.